after 9 Aspen is cleared, do you go back to where the green truck is? Do you do anything else?
I stayed right there in the general area. The brothers were then, of course, subsequently placed into the back of patrol cars. They were searched and put in the back of patrol cars by other deputies. At that time, our watch commander, our on-call watch commander was showing up on scene, Lieutenant Morgan. The divisional lieutenant was showing up on scene, which was Lieutenant Pagliari. Our major case scene was showing up on scene. So what we did is basically we had a caucus and I told them what I had seen and what we had done thus far reference to the crime scene in general.
Did you conduct any other felony stops on any other vehicles?
No, sir.
Besides the white truck with the big tires?
We did not even conduct a felony stop on that vehicle, sir.
You did not. You just know that it was in the vicinity.
We know that when I showed up on scene, as the white truck was being stopped, the green truck, of course, diverted our attention because that was the one we had information about. So we began the felony stop there. The white truck was deemed inconsequential at that point in time because a deputy was talking to them, and we let that vehicle go.
I have no further questions.
Thank you, sir.
Counsel for Ray Greenlaw examination.
Good afternoon, Sergeant.
Good afternoon, sir.
When you were referring to being on scene and en route and these sorts of things, you're referring to it with essentially the CAD report, right? The refresher.
Yes, sir. It's a caddy call history.
Okay, and is that for police event P11302048-9?
Yes,
That's
sir.
the one you have. Okay. And what does it mean when somebody is en route?
Means that they are on their way.
Okay. And you were 1 Delta 30, were you not?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And so the call comes in at 5:36:36, and you had previously testified that individuals were en route at 5:37:10. When's the first notation of a unit being en route that you can see on your CAD report? And what time is that set?
That would be 1 Delta 34 at 5:38:46.
So about a minute and a half after what you had previously said, more or less, correct?
When it comes to en route, yes, sir.
Okay. And that means on the way, as in I received the call, I am now heading in that direction.
That's when we notify Central that we are en route, yes.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
As the call's coming out, deputies will start moving in the direction of the address that was given by Central while Central is dispatching information to us.
Okay.
And we may not be able to transmit right away that we are en route, but as soon as radio traffic clears is when we start letting Central know which units and how many units are available and heading that way. That may answer the question for the lapse in time.
Okay. And you are, well, can you explain to me what the code with the letters ONSCN, what those mean? When you see that in the annotations there.
Yes, sir, that means on scene.
Okay. And can you tell me in what entry and at what time you first see the on-scene notification?
5:47:52 seconds.
Okay, and that includes yourself, 1 Delta 30, and 1 Charlie 34?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, you had stated that the truck, the green truck, and it may be a minor detail or it may not be a minor detail, but you had stated that the green truck was stopped when you arrived on scene, correct?
As I was arriving on scene, it was at Aspen and Roosevelt. It turned off of Aspen onto Roosevelt, where it was met by myself, Charlie 34, and other deputies that were arriving on scene
Okay, so
in that location.
so when you first announced on scene, you had not seen that green truck yet?
At the
Personally.
intersection of Aspen and Roosevelt,
You saw it visually?
yes.
Okay. And that would have been right at 5:47:52, more or less, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And so you see the green truck approximately how far away do you think?
A block, so what, 300 feet, 400 feet?
Okay. And so at $5:49:09, isn't there some information about that green truck that's sent out over dispatch?
Yeah, it states that green truck at 09, green truck leaving towards Azalea, and then right after that is green truck went westbound, unknown which way from there.
So you arrive at 5:47:52, and at 5:49:09, which is a little bit more than, what, 67 seconds more or less, the truck is still driving around, but it's only 300 yards away.
This could be information that was given to Central by a caller on the telephone.
Okay?
They did not see the direction that the truck was going. They first say it went towards Azalea, when we clearly know it did not, that it went right down Aspen to Roosevelt.
Okay. What is the, so that's at 5:49:09. What does the annotation say at 5:50:49?
550-49,
Yes.
it says green truck went eastbound on Roosevelt.
Okay. And back up to 5:49:35.
Green truck went westbound, unknown which way from there.
So that's 30 seconds after the first annotation regarding the green truck. And then,
Again, this is information coming from someone on the telephone to Central. This is not the deputies that have already seen the truck and are now conducting the felony stop on that truck.
okay, well, so what happens at 5:51:06?
That's where, after conducting the traffic stop, the felony stop, we finally tell Central, we have the truck,
Okay, so 4 minutes more or less.
conducting the felony stop. Yes, sir. This is where we are gonna be very safety conscious
Okay,
and safety minded, so none of my deputies, so basically I don't have to call their families.
okay. Now, I understand that. Now, so that's at 5:50. Let's see.
55106, we got the green truck.
We got 5:51:06, we got the green truck, correct. Now, you're 1 Delta 30. And what do you call out at 5:55:47? That's the, okay, 5:55:47 is the 3 secured. That's where you're
We're already
at
down.
13
Yes,
with
sir.
those 3 individuals, 4 minutes later. Okay, may I have a moment, Your Honor? I don't have any other questions, Your Honor.
examination, Mr. Melton?
Real quickly. Sergeant, the tag call that you're looking at there in front of that printout,
Mhm.
it contains both the information being relayed to the 911 operator by whoever called 911, and it also contains the radio traffic from dispatch to you and you to dispatch, right?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
So there's a whole lot of stuff that's jumbled in there, and a whole lot of people fighting for space to write down what they're hearing and what they're saying.
Yes, sir.
And it takes a little while to get all that clear and ironed out.
Yes, sir.
Is it your testimony that those times on there aren't always accurate as to what the event was,
Yes, sir.
but that it's as close as you can get a clear channel to call out what you heard?
Yes, sir.
And it's law enforcement's best effort to get real-time monitoring of the situation.
Correct.
But there are delays, things occur in different orders.
Yes, sir, because information coming from whoever may be calling it in on 911 isn't always right now to me.
For instance, the green truck. I mean, you're clearly on scene, you've got eyes on the green truck at 5:47:52, and even a minute and a half later in that report, you're hearing that the green truck is driving up and down Aspen and Azalea.
Right, because this is information coming from whoever may be on 911, going to a 911 terminal operator, which is then being transmitted via like text message on a computer system to our dispatcher, who is then trying to relay that information to us as clearly and as concisely as possible.
And the dispatcher at the same time is receiving information from you and putting it back into the teletype
Yes, sir.
by text message or however it is that you do that.
Yes, sir.
So the dispatcher is very busy.
Yes, they are.
And that accounts for some of the discrepancies we've heard at the time.
Yes, sir.
But long story short, the call's received at 5:36:36. Dispatch puts that information out over the police channel at 5:37:10. The first deputy calls out that they're en route at 5:38:46. And you are on scene at 5:47:52.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and anything else in there is details back and forth as to what's happening.
Yes, sir.
And I heard you say a minute ago that you spent 4 minutes securing the green truck and the individuals in the green truck.
Roughly.
When you were securing the two defendants, did you receive information through dispatch that you had gotten the right guys, the guys who were outside shooting? Did the 911 caller relay that to dispatch, or to the operator who relayed to dispatch who relayed to you?
I believe dispatch told us that the individuals with the guns were at 9 Aspen.
Right.
So that's what we were assuming, that they were the individuals at 9 Aspen because they were in front of 9 Aspen, that they were our suspects, and that's why we put them on the ground.
Okay, and so to that extent, there's no reason to go back and kick down a locked bedroom door if you've already got your guys.
Correct.
Let me ask you one other quick series of questions about the escort out of 13. You said that you proceeded along the front wall of the garage to the western edge of the garage to escort the individuals out of the carport garage area.
I believe that we came out that door. Yeah, can we put the picture back up? Thank you.
Here's the door.
Garage, right? Yes, sir. Again, we came out the door, which is right here, or you can see the bottom of it better here or here.
And it's up in this corner.
Yeah, it's up in this corner that you can't see here. We brought the 3 individuals out this way, which would have been along these plastic containers, had to step past the compressor and along this wall,
You see the compressor
this
here?
wall here, where then we then came out, which would have been in front of this car along this wall, where Deputy Seltzer was over here.
And that's the question that I have for you while we're talking about it. Stay right there. You're proceeding out this wall of the carport, right?
Yes, sir, right here.
On this side, there's the wall right there. You're proceeding out this western wall of the carport.
Yes, sir.
Did you keep the people on the western side of this car and move them? Or did you move them around the east of the car and then back behind the vehicle?
No, they would have came out and stayed to the west of the vehicle. And then if once we cleared everything, they would have been located back over here.
And while they were within the crime scene and the secure perimeter created by law enforcement,
Yes,
they
sir.
wouldn't have been allowed to pick up anything in the crime
Yes,
scene.
sir.
And somebody would have been monitoring them the whole time?
Yes, sir, Deputy Seltzer was with them the entire time, at a distance. Because I didn't want him talking to them either.
At that point, it's very important to secure both testimony and evidence, right?
Yes, sir.
And not to taint either?
Correct.
Thank you. I have no additional questions for this.
Sergeant Keaton be released from his subpoena?
Yes, ma'am.
Any objections?
Ma'am.
Mr. Honor. Okay. Sergeant Keaton, you are released from your subpoena, subject to the legal sequestration. You're not to discuss your testimony with anyone other than the attorneys involved in this case until this trial is over. Should you fail to follow the court's instructions, you would be subject to criminal contempt of court proceedings. Do you have any questions about that?
No, ma'am, I do not.
Or excuse?
Thank you, ma'am.
Can we approach on schedule? Right.
State's next witness.
M2U00453.
Will you please step to the podium, raise your right hand, be sworn in, and answer out loud?
You solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you shall give this cause will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Swear, please. Witness is seated.
Remain quiet.
Thank you, Judge. Just give me one moment. Thank you for your patience.
No problem.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Could you tell us your name?
David DeWeese.
And what do you do for a living, sir?
I'm an investigator with the Volusia County Sheriff's Office,
And what type of investigator are you currently?
crime scene investigator.
How long have you been so employed?
26 years with the Sheriff's Office, about 23 in crime scene.
Tell us what a crime scene investigator does within the Volusia County Sheriff's Office.
We were responsible for the documentation, collection, and preservation of physical evidence.
And do you work with any particular investigators, or is it a more general function than that?
general function, but we work closely with our homicide investigators and major case unit.
Were you called upon to investigate a scene in the area of 9 and 13 Aspen on October 29th, 2011?
Yes, sir, I will.
And tell us, please, how it is that you came to be involved in this incident or this call.
I was contacted by my on-call crime scene investigator who requested assistance on a homicide investigation.
When you arrive on scene, you're not the first deputy.
No, sir.
In fact, you're probably not the 50th deputy.
No, sir.
Okay. How does the information progress from the time that the person is discovered dead up until the time that you get involved? Tell us that channel of information and how it moves to you.
Well, the channel of information will go from the initial deputies that respond to the scene to the investigative supervisor who's out there or the investigator who's out there. When I get there, I'm briefed by my lieutenant who has got the best information that he has at the time of what has happened.
And so you learn a little bit about the situation,
That's correct.
what other officers have either gleaned through interviews or their own observations,
That's correct.
and then you start your personal investigation regarding the evidence on scene.
That's correct.
Do you have any help?
I guess I had two other investigators out there assisting.
Did it have anything to do with the size of this scene?
Yes, the size is code-loaded.
Do you usually work a scene that includes half of a block?
Not normally, that's rare.
Tell us how it is that you're assisted and how the other officers respond and what the chain of command is with respect to the three individuals working crime scene.
Even though I'm outranked on the scene by both of the other investigators, I have control of it. I'm the lead crime scene investigator, so I have control of the scene. They assist me with things such as measurements, searching the scene. I sent one of the investigators up in the helicopter to take aerial photographs.
And so essentially, once you arrive on scene, it's your scene.
It's my scene. I'm ultimately responsible for everything as far as evidence.
What's your first step in the collection and I guess the observation and collection of evidence? What do you do when you get released after? Let me start in an entirely different place. Start with a good question, okay? You've received the information from your superiors about what is known at the time.
Yes, sir.
What do you do next?
What I want to do after I get that information is we do what's called a survey of the scene. I want to do a cautious walkthrough of it, not disturbing anything, to get a scope of what I'm looking at. Do I need more equipment? Do I need more help? How many blocks does this scene actually take up, or how many houses? Give us a scope of what we're looking for. And after the survey, we'll do our general photography, our videotaping, to get the document. After that, we'll go into actually marking the items of evidence with a little placard so we can later identify them in a sketch or identify them as we introduce them to you in court. And after we re-photograph it with these placards, and then ultimately, after all this documentation is done and a sketch is done at the scene with measurements, we will collect those items as evidence.
It sounds like a very detailed and time-consuming procedure.
Yes, it is.
How long did you work this particular crime scene?
From about 8 o'clock in the morning until about between 6 and 7 at night.
And so between 9 Aspen and 13 Aspen, you spent roughly 11 hours?
Yes, sir.
How detailed is your investigation at that point?
It's very detailed because I can't, in the crime scene work, you can't go back and get things later. You have to, what's the word I'm looking for? You have to get everything done there and try to sew up every possible angle as far as evidence, because next day I can't go back again. I've lost the scene, I've lost my chain of custody, so I have to get it that night.
You aren't going to hold down the city block for a week.
Preferably not.
you're gonna turn it back over as soon as you've completed your investigation, and you're gonna be as thorough as possible
That's correct.
before you release it back to general traffic and the civilians.
Yes, sir.
Tell us what your observations were, and let me give you a picture here. Just for your general overview, this is number 9, and this is number 13, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Walk us through where you arrive on scene, how you how and what you start to observe, things that you note of importance, and then we'll go back house by house, scene by scene, over the details.
When I first arrived at the scene, we concentrate on number 13, Aspen, and the evidence that's out there in the roadway, because at this time, we had not a real heavy rain, but a steady rain throughout that morning, and we want to get to that evidence that's exposed to the elements as soon as possible. That's our first priority. So when I get there, we have quite a few shell cases out in the street. 9mm caliber and .223 caliber, which .223 is a rifle, 9mm is typically a pistol round. And then we work our way into the residence itself, where the victim's located in the carport, and then work all the evidence around him and concerning the victim there. And then I'm sorry?
Let me ask you with respect to where the victim is in the carport, is it free from environmental factors like rain?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so any concern that it's going to be contaminated by environmental factors while you're working in the street?
No, it's secure and it's covered, and so we want to concentrate on what's outside.
Okay. After you started there into the carport, what do you do next?
After we're through with the processing, which is extensive in the carport, because we have multiple projectile or bullet strikes into the walls in this carport. Out in the roadway, I have, just in that area, 13 9mm shell casings and I believe 13 .223 rifle caliber shell casings. So we're spending a lot of time in the carport to document where these bullets are striking, where they penetrated the walls, doing the sketches of these with height and distance, and then actually having to go in like a little utility room there and go through all, like your attic and utility room stuff. These people had a lot of stuff, a lot of Christmas stuff, which we had to break all this down to try to find these bullets in there. This took quite a bit of time.
Let me do this as we go through it so we don't have to repeat the process.
Okay.
I'm going to work with you, show you some photographs, because I don't want to come back around later and say, well, what did you do here? You talked about it yesterday.
Yes, sir.
Let's do it now.
Okay.
Let's show you what's been marked, the state's exhibit 9. You told us earlier that you put a guy up in a helicopter to take photographs. Is this one of the photographs from the helicopter?
Yes, sir, it is.
Okay, and in fact, is that you right there in the black t-shirt leaning over?
That is me, yes.
And what were you doing there?
I was, I think, sketching out the scene at that point.
Okay, and is this your crime scene truck?
That is the crime scene van, yes.
Okay, and what is contained within the crime scene van?
Basically, all the equipment we need to process the scene. We have tools for digging, we have measuring tapes, we have lots of evidence bags, all our chemical tests, anything that we would need for a crime scene.
For any crime scene?
For any crime scene, yes, any condition.
Anything but the dive team?
Pretty much, yes.
Okay. We see yellow markers here on the street. Tell us what we're looking at with the yellow markers. Can you see them from there? Come on down. Come on over here if you can. In fact, Judge, can we move around to the front where everybody can see equally?
Yes, and council has the ability to move to be able to see what Investigator Luis is referring to.
Yes. David, just step on this side. Sure. Yep. Okay.
And I think some of the jurors on the end are going to have trouble seeing.
This is you here. through what we see from this close-up angle. This is number 13 with the red driveway. We see the yellow crime scene perimeter tape set up in various directions, and law enforcement vehicles within the perimeter.
Yes, sir. This area where I'm standing, or right in this area right here, we have a cluster of the 223 rifle shell casings. Also over in this area, we have a cluster of the 9mm shell casings.
Showing you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 6. Same red driveway, right?
That's correct.
Number 13.
Yes.
These are the shell casings that you're talking about, the two discrete groups.
That's correct. You have this area here, which is more scattered out of the rifle shell casings, and you have this more tight cluster of the 9mm pistol shell casings.
And in fact, this photograph in the middle is taken from the vantage point of the 223 shell casings, the rifle shell casings, roughly.
That is right.
And this photograph up here is taken from the vantage point of the 9mm shell casings, and you can see some in the lower left corner. And so these would have been the positions of our shooters, or very close approximations.
Close approximation, yes.
Please proceed with your description of the scene there by the shell cases.
As we said, we have the two cluster areas. Again, we mark them out. After we're done in the garage, I'm sorry, these are, or get rid of that point. And we go on into the garage and work the area where the victim is located. And then,
Go ahead.
From there, after that is all documented and the items are collected there, we'll move down to number 9, Aspen.
Okay, let's talk about your examination of the garage. Showing what previously been marked as State's Exhibit 13. Do you recognize that series of photographs?
Yes, sir, I did.
Okay, walk us through the photographs, if you would, from any perspective that you wish, just for the purposes of the record, indicate where you started and which direction you traveled.
Start right up here in the top left. This is the edge of the garage. Right away right here, which will lead out this area. When I first walk up, you can see projectile or bullet strikes to this trash can. There's also some underneath these plants here and the wall itself. And what you're looking at, these rods here are called trajectory rods, which actually allow us to present to you, people not familiar with the scene, the actual angles of where the bullets are hitting these items. Let's look in the garage, you can see the victim laying here, he's face down, here is his feet. Above his position, there's a wall, and the side wall, again, you can see multiple shots with the trajectory rods.
Now, for each trajectory rod, is that a bullet strike or is that a bullet penetration?
That is a bullet penetration, and you have to have that to get the rod.
Right, for just a simple strike is not enough. You can't stick the rod through.
Now,
Okay.
what's a little tricky with this scene is the 223 caliber rifles. They have a habit of fragmenting when they strike stuff. Therefore, what may be one projectile strike to the exterior trash can, it may fragment and can cause another hole in other items. So you have to be careful about using that as a total of shots. It may be one shot, may have multiple holes.
Very good point. And as you're trying to clean up the carport and figure out what occurred and collect all of the evidence, after these projectiles, the 223 projectiles, after they come apart, are you trying to gather up all the fragments that you can find?
Yes, we're finding little pieces of the jacket, flattened out bullets. These bullets are made when they hit something, they will start tumbling.
And so in order to find all of the projectile strikes and all the projectile penetration areas, and then also all the projectiles, do you have to go through all of these items by hand?
All those items by hand to the utility room where, again, this penetrated the wall here, there's quite a bit of stuff in there. And then we found out in the driveway, the overhead, projectile close to the middle or back of that car. So they're flying out of the garage and off the concrete. These things are going everywhere.
So they're actually ricocheting and rebounding
Yeah.
back out. Okay, well, let's talk first about the inside of the carport here. A lot of the projectiles went through various objects within the carport, correct?
Yes.
Did they also penetrate the block walls of the carport and the home?
Yes, they did. They actually went through the first layer of concrete block, has two sides to it. It would actually penetrate the first layer of concrete block.
And
So
were you-
you cannot recover those without tearing the people's house apart.
And you didn't go so far as to tear down the walls and get the pieces out?
No, typically when this round penetrates concrete, it's really not a forensic value. It will fragment it and not much that can be done.
But anything short of penetrating the walls, you opened up the objects and tried to retrieve
Absolutely.
any projectile that was in there? Okay. Stay right there. Investigator Luis, do you recognize what's been marked as State's Exhibit JJ, II, and GG by their exterior packages and the labels there upon?
Yes, sir, I do.
And what do you recognize those items to be?
I recognize the item to be 13 223 caliber shell cases from the roadway. The next item, item 2, is 13 9mm caliber shell cases from the roadway. And 8 projectiles and/or fragments from the scene, which would be from again in the driveway or inside the garage.
There are no objections, State would move II, JJ, and GG in evidence of State's next.
Any objection, Mr. Lawrence?
No.
Mr. Valerino?
No, Your Honor.
I will be admitted as State's Exhibit number 15, and JJ will be 16, GG will be 17.
Now, with respect to the 8 fragments that you did locate inside the carport and the surrounding area, they were either scattered on the floor or inside some of these Tupperware boxes that you pointed out.
Actually, the Tupperware boxes, they had completely traversed the Tupperware boxes.
Okay.
Then here, in the building room, we see these rods, they had actually come to rest in bags in there and other boxes.
Okay, you took those boxes apart, sorted them by hand, and found the projectiles. You told us previously that 2 of them had either ricocheted or rebounded out into the driveway near the vehicle. Do you have a photograph that shows those 2 items with yellow markers?
Yes, sir.
Is it in the middle photograph of State's Exhibit 6?
Yes, sir, it is.
Okay, could you point to the 2 fragmented rounds that either rebounded or ricocheted?
This is pretty much a hole around that's flattened out right here towards the back of the vehicle. And then the yellow marker up towards the front is a jacket off of the rifle round.
And while we're looking at this particular vantage point, could you show us all the bullet holes in that car?
There is no bullet holes.
Not a single bullet hole in that car?
Not a single bullet hole. There's a cracked tail light lens or a broken tail light lens, but there's no plastic there. And obviously that had nothing to do with the shooting. There's no way that it would have broken that out without us seeing some open lens there.
Well, I thought you told us that the upper photograph here is the position of the person firing the 9mm. Are you to tell us that not a single round hit the side of this car?
Not a single round.
And this was, the middle photograph is the position of the person shooting the .223, isn't it?
That would be very close.
And again, not a single round hit this vehicle.
Yes, sir.
All of the rounds instead hit where?
Get inside the garage or right along the edge or hit the victim.
Now let's talk about the victim. You have him pictured here in several of these photographs. Tell us what first catches your attention about this victim.
This victim, first thing that I noticed is he has 2, what I can tell is probably 2 apparent gunshot wounds at minimum pretty serious wound to the leg, so I can't really tell how many wounds there is to the leg. There's a large wound there, and then there's a wound to the small of the back.
Okay, and what do you notice next about the victim or the area surrounding?
Again, he's face down on the floor, right. Above his head here is a 12-gauge Winchester pump shotgun. And over here, this yellow item we see is a DeWalt utility flashlight. We see the battery over here, which was actually broken apart. The battery had been busted. Not by gunfire, though. There's no evidence that it was struck by gun.
Just looked like it probably fell. at some
Probably
point.
fell and broke, maybe.
Did you collect the DeWalt flashlight?
Yes, sir, I did.
I'll show you what's been marked as State Exhibit 00. You recognize that?
Yes, sir, I did.
How do you recognize that? What do you recognize it to be?
I recognize it by my label and by my signature on the back of the evidence tape. It was the broken DeWalt flashlight found beside it.
There are no objections to move 00 and the evidence that states next.
Any objections?
No objection? No, Your Honor.
Exhibit states exhibit number 18.
Investigator Deweese, I'm showing you what's been marked as State's Exhibit A for identification. It's been opened and cleared to make sure there's no threat. Please take a look at the box, the outer wrappings, or the inner item if you'd like to discover what it is.
Yes, sir, I recognize the packaging and my evidence seals on it. And I recognize that as the Winchester 12-gauge shotgun depicted next to the victim.
Okay. Given that a shooting has occurred, and you have all of, I'm going to go ahead and remove States A and evidence that states next. There's no objection.
No objection. Ray Greenlaw has no objection, Your Honor.
Admitted as states exhibit number 19.
Given that a shooting has occurred, as evidenced by all the shells and casings found in the street, and that a shotgun is located next to the victim, what are your first thoughts as a crime scene investigator?
My first thoughts, I want to know if this firearm has been fired.
Okay.
I want to look for, I'm not going to open and inspect it right there because I have to wait for the medical examiner to arrive on the scene before I disturb anything in proximity to the body.
Okay. And so you leave the shotgun there
Leave the
until,
shotgun there, but I'm going to be looking inside for this pretty prominent 12-gauge shell casing that comes out of it.
describe to us the relative size and shape of a shell case for a shotgun as opposed to a rifle or a 9mm.
For a shotgun, it's a 2 3/4 inch, basically 3-inch long shotgun shell. And it's about probably 3/4 inches wide, 12 gauge. So it's pretty, in this case, the ammunition of Remington will express buckshot, which has a green casing on it, plastic casing. And it's called a high brass shell, which means that it has a fairly lengthy area of brass on that shotgun shell, which is pretty easy to see.
With respect to the 223 and the 9mm, much, much larger.
Much, much larger. Also, there's, just to touch base on it with the 12-gauge shotgun shell, we're not only looking for that shell case, but it fires out a nylon wadding unit, which actually keeps buckshot together as it travels down the barrel, and once that shot exits the barrel of the shotgun, this nylon wadding opens up, and it'll usually look like a flower petal. It'll have 12-gauge has 4 petals on it, and it's pretty prominent wherever it lands, because if it lands in grass, it's again like a large plastic flower petal.
Okay. So,
They will usually travel not over about 100, 120 feet.
and then in addition to that, you also have, when a shotgun has been fired, you have the buckshot or the bird shot exiting the the weapon, right?
Yes, I've got that particular little buckshot, is 9 colors traveling down a range of large shells, not 32 caliber.
And so potentially you have an area that may have damage from buckshot or bird shot and pellet strikes.
That's correct.
Your thinking that as soon as you see the shotgun.
Yes, I'm not concerned about it.
And are you looking for those three things, either the wadding or the shell or the damage from the pellet strikes,
Absolutely.
as you process your scene?
Yes.
Both inside the carport and in other places?
Outside the carport, yes. I've got my other people, others who investigate it. Correct.
And so there's three of you looking for that characteristic of a weapon being discharged. More precisely, a shotgun being discharged. You did find eventually that there were shotgun shells within your crime scene, did you not?
Oh, yes, I did.
Where were the only two shotgun shells located within the crime scene?
One was in the chamber or the barrel of the gun, ready to be fired. And the other one was in the magazine tube of the shotgun, which you have to rack a round out and then rack another one back in. This is a pump action shotgun.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit AA.
Yes, I recognize that.
Okay, and again, your evidence seal.
It is my seal, my initials on it, and my label on it. It's two Remington double-aught buckshot shells from that shotgun.
Okay, and we can see inside there the relative size of a shotgun shell.
Yes.
Judge, if there's no objection, I move into evidence AA. The state's next.
Mr. Lawrence?
Objection, Judge.
Mr. Rodriguez?
No objection.
And then the state's exhibit number 20.
I'd like you to open up State's Exhibit 16 and State's Exhibit 15 and remove one shell case from each of the containers. It doesn't particularly matter which one on each of them. There are 13 individual packages within the brown container that you just cut open, right? One for each shell case. Go ahead and open just one of them. And take out the shell case of a 9mm. Just hold it up for everybody to see and then set it on the jury's rail there. If you'll do the same with the 223, please. Just set that next to the 9mm. These are the relative sizes of all three kinds of ammunition that you're looking for in the crime scene. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And as you proceed through the scene, you found many spent cases related to both the 9mm and the 223, but nothing spent or fired as it relates to the shotgun. That's right. Okay, is there any other additional discussion related to the processing of this particular carport? Okay. Let me look at my notes real quick.
Also like to note on the shotgun, that later when this item was examined, I looked down the barrel with a light.
Yes, I'd like to talk with you about that. Hold on 1 second. Let's talk about that last, but first talk about the preservation of evidence as it relates to the victim himself. The victim in the crime scene is also evidence, is that correct?
Absolutely, yes.
And his physical condition may become relevant at some point later down the line.
Yes, certainly.
And what steps are taken to ensure that he is preserved in order to ensure the integrity of the investigative and prosecutorial process?
Again, we have everybody cleared out of these sections. The deputies first arrived, it was a result of crime scene tape. Then when I called the medical examiner, this particular case, I do what's called a gunshot residue test kit on the victim after the medical examiner investigator arrived. At that point, we bag his hands, and then he was placed into a body bag, which is sealed and photographed.
Does it surprise you to know that you did not do a GSR kit with respect to this particular victim, the gunshot residue kit, that investigator Josh Mott did at autopsy?
Oh, that's correct.
And do you recall just bagging his hands in order to preserve his hands? And investigator Josh Mott actually collected the gunshot residue kit from the victim at autopsy?
That would be correct.
Okay. But it can go
Either
either
way,
way.
we bag the hands because the trace evidence is there, and anything in the medical examiner wants to look at. So it's, regardless, it's bagged and preserved.
And then eventually the medical examiner is called in, and he is bagged and preserved.
Yes.
And all of that is transported at once to the medical examiner's office for autopsy within the following day or two.
Yes.
Now let's talk about the shotgun. Good, thank you. Okay, go ahead and open the shotgun. And now, you're familiar with firearms, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Both in your professional life and also in your personal life.
Yes, sir.
Been shooting for many years,
About collecting and shooting for over 32 years.
and you're well versed in the function of a shotgun.
Yes, sir.
When you find a shotgun like this, in addition to looking for the shell cases, or excuse me, in addition to looking for fired shotgun shells, and the wadding, and the damage that's caused by the shotgun being fired, what other things do you do to determine whether or not the gun has been fired on scene, recently fired?
Again, after we checked it at the scene and I found that the 2 rounds are in there, I want to take a light and look down the barrel. If it's been recently fired, I'm going to expect